Okay, on the right here we've got the Synthstrom Deluge from New Zealand, and on the left we've got the Polyend Play from Poland. And obviously, as you can see, I own both these instruments. The other day I was thinking it would be really good to use the sequencing capability of the Polyend Play in tandem with the Deluge. The scenario might be that you filled up all 8 tracks of your Polyend Play sequencer, but you do have another 8 tracks of external MIDI to use. If you hold Shift and this top button here, takes you to the MIDI page, and this is completely empty, so I've got 8 more tracks that I can use if I can sequence an external MIDI device, and that's where the Synthstrom Deluge comes in. I had a bit of trouble figuring this all out, so I thought, having figured it out, I'd show you. Now, I'm no expert on either of these machines. I know this works, so let's see what happens. You've got to use one of these leads, which is a female MIDI adapter to a TRS jack, and that goes in the back of the Polyend Play, the MIDI out, and then you plug a normal MIDI lead in to that. You can probably see that here, and then that goes into the MIDI in of the Deluge. So you're coming out of the Polyend Play into the Deluge. When you switch the Deluge on, it defaults to an empty song, which is what we want, and we'll set this machine up first. Basically, you need to go to song mode. Now, this is an old machine. It's got the old display. It hasn't got the nice shiny OLED display, but it's still basically the same software. It's the latest software as of this date, which is the 25th of January 2024. So it's an old machine but with the latest software. So you go to the song mode, press any pad on this top row, and that takes you into what I used to call track mode, but it's now clip mode, and I've got this very professional label on here saying clip. So I've now got a clip set up. I'm going to change this to kit. It defaults to synth. I'm changing it to kit, and I've got this, I think it's an 808 kit, Roland 808 kit on these pads here, on these audition pads. So the Deluge is more or less ready. Let's come back to the play. I'm going to change this back to the internal audio, and I've programmed in this very, very basic pattern, all in C. We'll just play this. So it's very boring, but as you can see, I've filled up all 8 tracks. So if I wanted to add more sounds to this, I'd have to use some empty pads on tracks I've already used, which is not ideal, of course. So I'm going to get some more sounds by sequencing the Deluge via MIDI. Okay, so I'm going to hold Shift and this button up here, which says Patterns, Audio stroke MIDI. So it's on audio at the moment. If I press it, now you can see these purple pads tell me that I am in MIDI mode, external MIDI mode. So I will now be sequencing the Deluge from the Polyend Play. On the play, I'm going to press View, and that takes me into this kind of keyboard mode. What we have here is a kind of vertical keyboard. So you'll see how this works in a moment. Now, obviously, if you're using the internal sounds of the play, then you can use this to actually, record live or, input notes. It's great, but we're going to use it in tandem with the Deluge in a moment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hold Learn, and we're going to hold this bottom pad, and then we're going to press a button over here on the play that's going to be assigned to that kick drum. You need to be a bit of a contortionist to do this, so hold Learn with your thumb, little finger on the pad, and then press this button over here. Now that's quite fierce, so we're going to turn that volume down. I don't know if you can see that, but turn it down to 60. And we'll put one there and one there. So we've got 2 kick drums in our pattern. So the play is sequencing the Deluge. Let's do the same thing for the snare, which is the next one up. Hold Learn and that snare pad and another pad over here. There's our snare. Can we change the volume of that? Yes, we can. Turn that up to 74. Put one there and one there. So the kick drum volume or velocity is 60 and the snare is 74. Right, so we've got kick, snare, kick, snare. I'm going to put all this on one track of the play. Let's learn the hi-hat. So learn, press the hi-hat pad, play another pad over here. That's now learnt. There's our hi-hat, and we'll put it here, here, here and here. Now we're going to use the play to control the reverb of the snare. So hold the snare pad, going to hold shift and the reverb amount, which is this pad here. It's now flashing white. Going to hold learn. I'm going to crank the reverb send on the play. Let's turn this first one off. So we've got one completely dry snare and one reverb snare. So I'm controlling the reverb on the snare via the reverb send on the play, which is pretty cool, isn't it? So we've got a little drum pattern and it's all on one track of the play. We need to make a few changes if we're going to add another sound. So let's come back to song on the Deluge and hold any pad of the second row. We've now got a different sound. This is a synth sound. We'll use this sound, it's absolutely fine. Now we need to change the MIDI channel to 2. It's set at 1 at the moment. Going to change it up to 2. Okay, come back to the synth. And over on the play, if I press sample, the sample knob, it's showing jack channel 1. Which means MIDI channel 1 is being sent out of this jack here. So we need to change that to 2. And now the play is sending out on MIDI channel 2 to the Deluge, which is receiving on MIDI channel 2 on this synth. Now we're going to learn again. It doesn't matter which pad we press of all these audition pads. So we're going to hold learn. I'm going to use the top pad, which is easy. And I'm going to hold this pad over on the play. Now, that's low down, so I can change the octave, and we'll put in just a simple quaver pattern here, which is very loud. So if I want to change all those pads, I hold view, so I'm back on this sort of main view, hold the global select of that track. I'm going to turn the volume down. So we've got a drum pattern on track 1 and a synth running on track 2. Now let's change the cutoff frequency of this second sound. So we're going to hold shift and the frequency button, which is this one here. It's button 9, top row, it's flashing, so it's ready to learn. So if I hold learn and crank the filter cutoff, you can see learn has come up on the Deluge. And here, as I'm cranking that, it's changing the cutoff frequency. So what we could do is we could have different filter cutoff settings on the pads. So this one here we could have there, and then you can see this, probably my hand's getting in the way, sorry about that. And when we run the sequence, you can hear as that sequence is progressing left to right, the cutoff is changing, the filter is opening, which is pretty cool, isn't it? All done from the play, all sequencing the Deluge, which is really brilliant, I think. Okay, let's do another sound. So we're back in song view, press any pad on the third row. We've got a new sound now. Going to change the MIDI channel, which defaults to 1 to 3. Okay, over on the play we're going to change the jack channel to 3, so we're transmitting on 3, receiving on 3. Just going to change the view, so we've got our keyboard up. Let's see what sound we've got. Let's change the sound. It's quite a distinctive sound, isn't it? Let's use this sound here. So same thing, we're going to hold learn and any pad of the audition pads, and we'll press this pad here over on the play, and of course as you progress up the keyboard you get higher and higher notes. Let's use this one here, which is a C, which is fine, and we'll just put it on the beginning there and there. So we've used 3 tracks of our MIDI side of the play to sequence 3 different sounds. Well, actually more than 3, because we had 3 drum sounds just on that top row, didn't we? And obviously you would need to save the song on your Deluge and obviously save the song on your play, otherwise you're going to lose it. I've got the audio of both these instruments going into my computer via the audio interface, and I'm using Reason to mix it. Let's play it again. Now of course that's only the audio from the Deluge. Let's come over to the audio of the play and let's change the view and let's unmute all these and put it all together. So there's just the play and there's the Deluge coming in as well. It's brilliant, isn't it? I love that. So now my Polyend Play is a 16-track sequencer, 8 internal tracks and 8 MIDI tracks. I'm still finding my way with this, so I'm a bit hesitant in places, but I think I'm pretty much there with it. I need to stress that this is an original Polyend Play. It's not a Polyend Play Plus. You'd see a plus sign next to the word play if it was. With the Polyend Play Plus, on this MIDI side you get some synths as well, but unfortunately those synths take away from the MIDI track, so if you use any of the synths you lose some of your MIDI tracks, so a little bit of a trade-off there. I think that's just about it. I'm going to save these songs on both these devices so I can link them up again. Hope you found that interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and you'll see me in my next video.